All right, hey everybody, it's 123 Baseball back again, week 3. Had a huge week 2 of college baseball this weekend. A lot of crazy stuff went on yesterday and today in the midweek world, and we're just excited to talk about it. Callaway, how are we doing today?
Fantastic, Ryan. Ready to talk some baseball.
Oh, I love to hear that. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff on the agenda today. I mean, ranked teams dropping games that ranked teams shouldn't drop. I mean, you got some big midweek matchups that went on yesterday and today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this weekend and some big Frisco Classic, Las Vegas Classic, and the Astros Foundation Classic we got going on. I mean, we've got some big tough fields, especially in this Astros Foundation Classic. I mean, we got Tennessee, Arizona, A&M, Oklahoma State, Mississippi State, Rice. I'm really looking forward to that, and I think it's going to be a great time. We'll get into that a little bit later. Callaway, we had a perfect game thrown yesterday. What do we think about that?
I mean, in classic Greg Maddux fashion, might I add. I mean, under 100 pitch complete game, 12 punches. You kidding me, Portland? You kidding me?
I mean,
this guy might be electric.
I mean, I didn't watch the game. I don't think anybody else probably watched that game either. Nobody knew he threw a perfect game until after it happened. But no diss to the Portland Pilots at all.
No.
But there was just a crazy amount of ranked midweek matchups yesterday that other people were tuned into. Wish I could have watched it. It looked like an absolute masterpiece. But Ryan Rimbiz throws the 37th perfect game in NCAA baseball history, which is a crazy number, by the way.
Right.
I mean, considering there is 300 Division I baseball teams, 300 plus Division I baseball teams, it makes a little more sense that there's more than MLB. But I mean, you got to think about these pitchers are not near as polished, and the fact that you throw a perfect game with 12 punch outs in 90 pitches, that's one of the most impressive stat lines I've ever seen. And I mean, your defense backs you up the whole way around. I mean, you only strike
That's it.
You only strike
It's college
out 12.
baseball. It's college baseball. You're telling me no one makes an error? Like it's not the MLB where everybody's automatic, right? Like to throw a perfect game, like those guys behind you got to back you up. So, I mean, the fact there's been that many with, I wouldn't necessarily say I've watched, every single game ever in the history of the universe, but I can go ahead and say that college defenders are not perfect. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even like I wouldn't even couldn't even tell you the last time I saw an SEC, ACC, Big 12 pitcher throw a perfect game. I mean, all these perfect games I've seen in the last 10 years, let it be like probably 2, 3, or 4, are just from these small mid-major universities all over the country. I mean, and they're not going to have these elite first-round talents that you're used to seeing, and it's just like you throw 12. You get 12 strikeouts, so you get 12 outs by yourself. But I mean, there's 15 still out there, and you're telling me you're giving up, and you throw it at 90 pitches, so there's bat to ball contact quite often in this game, whether it's foul balls or ground ball flyouts in play. I mean, that's one of the most impressive stat lines I've ever seen, and I mean, shout out to Ryan Rimbiz. I mean,
Hey, good for that
was
kid, right?
fantastic. Yeah. Let alone 90 pitches. 71 strikes. That's a 79% strike ratio. That's elite. That's not elite. That's more than elite.
Throw it over the plate. Hey, throw strikes to win games, right?
I mean, I've heard coaches tell their pitchers throw strikes win games, and I've never seen it turn into a perfect game. But I mean,
That's a good point.
it happens. Baseball is baseball, and things go on. A&M drops 2 games back to back, 3-2 to Cal Poly on Sunday, and then they turn around and lose to Texas State 7-3 Tuesday night at home. Both games rather at home. Callie, what you got on that?
I'll just go ahead and say this: that offense is not what they thought it would be. Bring him early back to be the head coach. Like they were bringing back basically the whole team offensively, and those guys are not performing. Everybody's, Harold Laviolette is, the A+ number 1 guy. Nobody's better. And I mean, big, tall, strong, athletic. I get it. He hits home runs. Only hit about 308, which is around there last year, which is not, crazy great for college baseball. You got guys hitting 400, stuff like that. But like, you think this is the year where you see the strikeouts come down, and they're just kind of not. So it kind of starts there, but it's not just him. I mean, Hayden Schott's not really doing what we thought he would do. You know, we're number 12, the 12th man there for A&M. He's only hitting around like 240. So it's just up and down the lineup. A&M's just not what we thought they were going to be yet. And I say yet. I mean, they were preseason number 1 for a reason. They still got Ryan Prager, who's about as good as it comes as a college arm experience and stuff like that. And the pitching staff in general has been pretty decent for A&M, but the offense has got to get going. And I'm not saying these guys aren't talented. It just hasn't clicked yet.
I mean, do you think Gavin Grahovac's season-ending injury has anything to do with that?
Oh, certainly. I mean, listen, you lose maybe after Laviolette, maybe your second best player. You know, he was great for him last year, fighting through the shoulder injury, and then just now decides that it's just too much. And you could watch him play, and you could see him grimace a little bit with that shoulder. And they just decided, you know, either it was A, going to get worse, or B, he was hurting the team by being out there with the shoulder injury. And so they just moved on ahead to have that thing worked on. Certainly that's going to be a blow for A&M. But, I mean, like I said, when you come into the season, preseason number 1, the offense was supposed to be the calling card for you. Losing one guy should not sink your season. They just got to get some of these guys going.
Yeah. Do you think that him opting out for the rest of the season to undergo surgery, you think that could be something to do with like a agent saying, hey, man, you're about to get a nice paycheck here in 5-6 months. You should probably get this operation done now, and your draft stock won't be tanked as much when you get your post-draft MRI on your shoulder and the whole thing's tore up.
Yeah, I mean, is he a draft eligible sophomore? I know he's only a sophomore this year, but I didn't know if he was draft eligible this year or not.
I mean, regardless, by any means, it could be one of those things where, I mean, you can tough it out your sophomore year, and then that thing's torn to shreds by the time your junior year starts and you miss your whole junior year or half your junior year. It's going to hurt your draft stock one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably what it came down to. It was like, hey, you can injure this more. You know, sometimes guys will have injuries and it's like, hey, you can play on it. You're not going to hurt it anymore. Like Tim Elko a few years back, coming back on a torn ACL and just hitting mammo tanks left and right, you know, for Ole Miss with the knee brace and everything on. So, like, if it's one of those situations where you can't hurt it anymore, I understand why you play through it. But this is probably one of those situations where that was not the case, and this was what was best for him, and what probably ended up being best for A&M if it was going to keep him down like that. I mean, he's only at 227 right now, so it's not like he's not going to cover off the ball, cover home runs. But, you know, you don't want that to drag over. Like, what does that look like 20 games in, 30 games in, playing on that shoulder? I'm sure it's only going to get worse. So it's probably best for him to just, you know, get it cleaned up and see what it looks like afterwards.
Yeah, I'm sure the shoulder is probably a pretty good indicator of why his batting average is as low as it is now. I mean, it's hard as it is to hit in the first place, but when you're only playing with 1.5 shoulders, it doesn't make it any easier to do by any means. This week, Virginia, I mean, they had a rough week. I mean, you go 1-2 with losses to Oregon State and Oklahoma. Good programs. I mean, they just haven't came out the way I thought they would. You know, I mean, that's your ACC predictor to win the conference this year. I mean, I think everybody thought Virginia was going to be the team to beat in the ACC, and they just haven't shown what they thought they could do this year. I mean, what you got anything on Virginia? What do you think's the problem over there?
I mean, I think it's same story, different title here that we just talked about with A&M. Those were the best two offenses everybody thought coming into the year, and so far, neither one of them is living up to their potential. And here's the thing, though. This is not a potential thing where it's like, okay, we've never seen these guys do it before. We think they can be really good. No. This is both of those teams. It falls for both of them. We've seen it. We know what these guys can do. They've done it for multiple years, a lot of them. So we know what kind of talent these guys have. They just haven't gotten going. And unfortunately for both of those teams, a lot of guys haven't gotten it going all at the same time. I mean, Virginia's 4-3 right now, and they very easily, you know, could have a couple more wins if some things fall their way. Blanco, who was supposed to be, kind of the guy, leading that rotation from the start, only throwing 1 inning this year. So what happens in that pitching staff going forward? I don't really know. But like we said, just with A&M, we've seen these guys do it. It's just they got to get going, And at some point, you're not expecting 1 through 9 to be cold, right? And that's kind of the way that both these teams are. Virginia, especially from a power perspective, they're not driving the baseball right now. A lot of their guys just aren't doing it. I mean, Harrison Didowick last year set the single season Virginia home run record. He's hitting 115, slugging 115. He's got no extra base hits. So, I don't think this will continue for either one of those teams, but it's certainly not ideal for either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, tough weekend. It's baseball. I mean, tough weekends happen. I mean, the best teams in Major League Baseball get swept in weekends. I mean, I'm sure the Dodgers last year had multiple weeks that they just weren't playing their best baseball. I mean, I'll just transition straight over. I mean, Kansas State last week had an absolute brutal week. They turn around, they sweep the Classic over there in Texas. I mean, they had a fantastic weekend. You beat Arkansas. You beat a Michigan team that just came out undefeated from Puerto Rico the week prior. And then you beat TCU in back-to-back-to-back days. I mean, that's one of the better turnarounds I've seen. And I mean, props to Kansas State. I mean, you drop 2 to Coastal. You have a rough week. You go 1-3 opening week, and then turn around, go 3-0 on the weekend series. You losing to UNC, tough game on a Tuesday night, and then you wipe that under the rug. I mean, that's all college baseball is. It's you take your losses, see what you can do with them, and then turn them into better outings, better at bats, better pitches. I mean, it's just, baseball at the end of the day comes down to one pitch at a time. And I mean, you just got to go with the flow with what happens in the game. And I mean, I think Kansas State did just that this past weekend.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen. Like we said, after the first weekend, it's the first weekend for a reason. Like you're rolling out, who knows? I don't know what the weather's like in Kansas. Who knows how much they practice outside? I don't know. Some of these northern teams are, rolling right out of the gym, rolling right out of the indoor practice facility out onto a real field. So you never know. I mean, going down there against those teams, you know what was in front of you. You knew what was coming. So you might as well just get up there and face it, right? You can't bow down. Like, this is a team that's, been in – they knocked out Arkansas the postseason last year. So it's not like these guys have not, ever been there before or played good teams like that before. And they knock off Arkansas, Michigan, and TCU really on the mound. I mean, you only give up 5 runs all weekend. It's a pretty good weekend. Arkansas, continues to maybe not show all the promise with the bat. But, it was a good weekend for Kansas State, and it doesn't get any easier. They got LSU on Friday night.
Yeah, speaking of LSU, they split a doubleheader with Omaha this past weekend. I mean, doubleheaders at the end of the day, it's the toughest thing to do in baseball. I mean, you got to play 18 innings. You got to perform your best for 18 innings. Sometimes you can play your best for 17 of those 18, and then it just comes back to bite you in the ass at the end of the day. I mean, you can do all you can, but doubleheaders are very hard to do. And LSU drops the first game of a doubleheader to Omaha on Saturday. They were down 5-0, came back, rallied in the fifth, or not bottom of the ninth, end up losing that game 5-4. You got anything on LSU? I mean, it's baseball. You win the series. I mean, not knocking LSU or anything, but I mean, that's one of those things where you have the talent you shouldn't be dropping double headers to the University. No knock to Omaha by any means.
No disrespect thrown on this podcast at all.
It's the home of the College World Series. There's nothing wrong with Omaha, Nebraska, or the University of Omaha by any means. But you're LSU. You shouldn't be dropping those games. And yeah, what do you got on LSU there? I mean, it's a tough
I mean, hey, they get off to a hot start. They're replacing a lot on the mound. Chase Shores has come back from injury. They get a transfer guy that's been pretty good for them on the mound. LSU has really pitched it well all year. Anthony Hyenson, I believe is how you would say that name. a guy that's he's got a .2 or a .82 this year for them after transferring over from UC San Diego. So he's been good. Chase Shores off injury has been good. Cade Anderson has been good. They're pitching it pretty well. William Schmidt, who was probably one of my favorite high school arms coming out last year. Didn't know if he'd make it to campus. Obviously, LSU, I'm sure, has a robust NIL collective to get things like that done and guys like that to campus. But, that's a premier 96, 97, 98 arm, coming into college. So on the mound, I think they'll be fine. They've played well every other game. Sometimes, like you said, what is it, like 80% of the time, like you're going to split a doubleheader no matter who you play. Obviously, it's not what you want. But what were they, down 5-0 going into the ninth and scored 4? So they almost got it done. I don't know, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. But you like the fight there, and you like coming back and winning after that, and they've got a tough test tonight with Dallas Baptist, who would probably be the best team they've played. Not that we can watch it, with it on behind a paywall. But yeah, no, I like LSU, and the one loss certainly is frustrating, I'm sure, for them. But no, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, no, Gavin, we know you hate you and your paywalls, and the entire weekend slate of tournaments that we have is
Flow sports in general. Out. I'm out.
Flow sports. D1 baseball. You got to have a subscription to watch that. There's a lot of stuff you got to pay for these days.
Nothing in this world's free, Ryan. Nothing in this world's free.
You got Disney Plus. Netflix is like $45 a month now. It's crazy. Tennessee, another dominant weekend against Samford this weekend. It's the best team they've played all year. They had a close game Friday night. Every game this weekend was a little bit closer than normal for them. The past 2 weeks, I think they've outscored opponents 73-4. Something along those lines. I think that was a note that I had from last week. But, yeah, Samford's a good team in the SoCon. I think they might come out on top in the SoCon at the end of it. They've got their weekend starters are great. They're always good. They've got good arms out of the bullpen. They've got gritty players up and down the lineup. And, yeah, but Tennessee found a way to sweep the weekend. They had a very close game yesterday against UNA. That game got kind of swept under the rug for me when I was looking back through it. They ended up winning 7-5. A 2-run win against UNA. UNA, no offense to UNA. I could name you 7 or 8 better teams in the state of Alabama than UNA. I'm not knocking UNA. North Alabama.
Right.
I know people from UNA, love them to death, not knocking them. But, as a Tennessee fan, does that worry you in midweek games? You're coming out against a very subpar opponent. You didn't have a really taxing weekend by any means, like SEC play. Do you think when Tennessee gets in the SEC weekends and they got to burn premium arms on a Sunday, maybe for 3+ innings, maybe a Sunday starter goes 1+, and you got 2-3 guys coming 3-4+ innings out of the pen that can't turn around and pitch on a Tuesday? Do you think that's a problem Tennessee might have to face?
I am not worried about midweek games for big time teams probably ever. I just don't think it's tough, and it's tough when you get in the grind of the SEC schedule or ACC schedule, especially when you just exhaust so much energy on a weekend. You got to come out and play your best ball on a midweek game against a team who's maybe beating you is the highlight of their season. So once you get into it, yeah, I understand. Certainly you would like to not have a super close game against UNA. But they haven't had a lot of close games otherwise. So no, I'm not really worried per se. Big thing for Tennessee that I just questioned coming in, they lost a lot off last year's team. Christian Moore and Blake Burke, you can start there. Those guys were absolute studs. Kirby Connell, I'm pretty sure pitched every single game the last 4 years for Tennessee. So, he's not there anymore. But I'll tell you, man.
He's on staff.
He's on staff.
He's a GA. He's a GA.
Okay, so they still got the mustache magic. But no, I tell you what, they've got a Friday guy. They've got a Friday guy. Of
Liam
course,
Doyle.
they just beat JU. Yeah, Liam Doyle, which we saw him as a freshman at Coastal, being like, okay, this kid's got something, right? And then, Coastal has been a, stalwart program that's in the tournament every year, won a national championship. So, in the era of NIL and portal, you can go look elsewhere. And kid leaves and goes to Ole Miss, doesn't have the year he wants. Doesn't have the year he thought he was going to have, and I'm sure they thought he was going to have. Gets the portal again, gets linked up with Frank Anderson. Arm talent was never a problem. And he's coming out this year, and it is just electric stuff. I would say in today's game where throwing the fastball has kind of become something that not a lot of people do, spin to win seems to be the motto across the sport, with just, it's harder to hit breaking balls. So we've kind of left the whole adage of get ahead with the heater, lead with the heater, throw 60% heaters. That's kind of gone away. Well, Liam Doyle's only punched out 25 in 10 innings with one walk, throwing 70% heaters. So when you got something, a special pitch like that, then you can just rear back and throw it. But 25 Ks, one walk is ridiculous. And they got guys behind him. Marcus Phillips has been good for them too. 12 Ks in 8 2/3, and big time guy back from injury. AJ Russell. They didn't think he would be back till maybe April, and he threw an inning. He threw an inning yesterday. One inning, 3 Ks. So that's another big time arm to look out for Tennessee. So Frank Anderson does an incredible job. Tony V and that whole staff just recruiting guys every year. It's a little ridiculous that how good they are. But Dean Curley, Hunter Ensley doing their thing. Gavin Klein from Louisville coming in, still doing his thing. A couple freshmen, Levi Clark and Jay Abernathy, are knocking the cover off the ball. So for Tennessee, they might be in the situation where maybe it's not rebuild, it's just reload.
Yeah, I think that might just be the tail of the tape for Tennessee for the years to come. Who doesn't want to play for Tony V? That guy rocks. He's going to fight for those players. He's fighting for players in court right now. Him, Frank Anderson, and Hunter Ensley were in a courthouse yesterday morning. What do you got on that? Do you think that he should be eligible? Do you think that this court should rule? I'm going to say my thing. No. I think if you let one player play and you change a 100-year rule that has always been in place, it's just going to absolutely open up the floodgates. And I think Diego Pavia getting his new year for JUCO in football, let alone in the state of Tennessee. So you got precedent there. It's in your state. You got precedent. It's the state ruling for him. Why not for me, kind of thing, especially in state. That has a lot more ground than anywhere else. I just think it's one of those things where it's like, man, dude, you played your 5 years. Like, you got your time. You get COVID, all this stuff. I don't know if he had a deep injury history. I haven't seen that anywhere. But you transfer from Tampa to Tennessee just to fight for another year of eligibility. I don't think you should get it. You've had your chances. I get it. He's a good player. I understand. But I just don't want to open up that precedent for everybody else to just be like, oh, well, I played JUCO. Let me backtrack. JUCO is major in baseball. Football, you have these guys that play JUCO football, okay? But the number of JUCO baseball players trumps the amount of JUCO football players that are in this position by 5 times fold. It's not even close. It might even be more than that. And,
probably more than that.
Yeah. So, I think it's just one of those things where it's, I could probably list you off 100 JUCO baseball players that I've played with in my lifetime. And I'm not even saying that as an exaggeration. Like, I think at this rate, especially in the years to come, everybody's going to go JUCO now that JUCO doesn't count towards NCAA eligibility, or that's where it's leading towards. So I think that's just going to be a huge problem down the road, and I don't think they should pass that waiver at all.
It's tough, and it's tough because of the whole Pavia thing to begin with, and then for him it's one more year, right? But lay that forward. So now, say you go to JUCO, out of high school. Okay, that's 2 years, right? Well, okay, so you show up as a 20-year-old, technically freshman. All right, you get hurt or, you don't play. Okay, so you're redshirt. So now you're 21. Then you get 4 more years. That's what you're trying to tell me that is supposed to be okay.
Juan Soto made his debut at 19, by the way.
I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know. The NCAA is a mystery to me. I think they are the weakest organization in the history of ever. They have no control over anything. And I love college athletics. I would rather consume any college sport rather than a pro sport any day. But it just seems like somebody's got to step in and stop whatever this could potentially become. Because, like you said, you let one guy do it, you're probably opening the floodgates for the entire sport. And I'm not trying to watch 25-year-olds, in college baseball anymore. Like, COVID's over. Like, I don't need the guys that are, off their parents' insurance and still playing college baseball, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, but who knows?
I think the only way if they let that pass, I think the only way to maybe mitigate that is by just removing the whole 3-year hold on players. I mean, that'd be the easiest way for me to think of, because the only way that alleviates pain from having 25, 26-year-olds on your roster is half of them getting drafted or signed somewhere after their first year or second year. I mean, there's multitude of players that I've seen that had amazing freshman years, sophomore years, and then have to wait around, have horrible junior years, and then they maybe not get as much money as they want junior year. They're like, all right, we'll sit around. I've got 2 more years. And then it just doesn't pan out for them there. And then that's when they turn into 24, 25-year-old players. I think just being able to hand them money at 19, just be like, here you go. Here's $800,000. Here's a 3rd-round signing bonus. Come on. And I think that might be the best way to alleviate that. I'm no expert on the topic by any means, but that's just opinions that I have, and I think that's probably the best way to be able to deal with that.
Your guess is as good as mine of what they'll handle and how they'll handle the situation. I have no clue, but hey, I'll just consume with whatever they throw out there.
Yeah, typically the NCAA just kind of does whatever the hell they want anyways, so we'll see what happens there.
Which usually is nothing. That's what the NCAA likes to do. Nothing.
Hey,
anyway.
Some things are good, not changed. UNC. Big win against Kansas State. Mentioned Kansas State had a fantastic week this weekend. They beat Kansas State midweek and then turn around, and I think this might be one of the best things in college baseball is the ECU UNC series every year. 1 game played at home for either team. Other game played in the Durham Bulls AAA Stadium. You got a home, you got a neutral, and you got an away game for either team. I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of teams should maybe pick up on that. I would love to see an LSU Lafayette home. Could you imagine the Teague against LSU in a weekend series? That would be fantastic.
Electric.
That'd be unbelievable. UNC comes away sweeping that weekend against ECU. They had to postpone the Friday night game. They had to play Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That Sunday game was pretty close. It was a 6-5 game there at the end. UNC has come out and they have been fantastic this year. What you got on UNC, Callaway?
They're pitching the ball well, man. They're pitching the ball well.
Oh, might I add, hold on, before you get in, you know how you said UNC hadn't hit a home run yet?
They had not.
First inning Saturday game, homer, UNC. Just putting that out there. Maybe you put that into existence, but it happened.
Maybe I sparked UNC. Maybe I got them going. Maybe I did. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. No, that has nothing to do with them. No, they're good. Hey, UNC was good. We knew they were good coming in. They're good on the mound. Picaro, like I said, it's been unbelievable. Walker McDuffie, unbelievable. 19 2/3 combined between the two of them. 6 walks, 25 Ks. So, you can't ask for much more than that with two guys with your most innings pitched with throwing up zeros, right? So yeah, I mean, we knew UNC was going to be good, and they'd come out and handle business in every way possible against all kinds of teams. Like you said, they come out and beat Kansas State 12-9 in a shootout, and then turn back around and maybe you think Kansas State's dead, and boom, they rattle off 3 straight against good teams. And UNC just keeps plugging against a pretty good ECU team who's trying to break in some new pieces from last year, but we expected them to, come in the top of their league. So, yeah, you're right with the weekend series going with home neutral site. I like that. I believe Clemson, South Carolina do the same thing.
Yeah, they play this weekend.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure they do the same way. Florida State and Florida do that, but it is spread across 3 midweek games, which potentially could be the dumbest thing ever, literally ever. It makes no sense. But we can come to that if we ever get there. My thoughts on how stupid that is and why they won't change it, I have no clue. Even Coach Jarrett has expressed his interest in playing that as a weekend series. I think fans want to see best on best.
Yeah. Could you imagine Jamie Arnold throwing against Florida?
I'd watch Jamie Arnold throw against the New York Yankees. I don't care. I think he's probably the best player on the planet. That's where I'm at right now. That would be exciting. And it's like, Florida doesn't normally take midweek games. They struggled in years past. We've talked about it last year, the struggles they had. Florida State handed it to them pretty good last year. Well, okay, what happens if we get some of their weekend arms on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Like maybe those games are a little more competitive. I don't know. And I know probably it's because you just want to throw in a softer non-conference schedule at the beginning of the year. Florida State likes to have that nice, easy runway into the season. But Florida's going to play Miami. We'll talk about that later. So. Yeah, but I don't know how we got there, but, I'll always bring Florida State into it somehow. But no, UNC, I mean, hey, we thought they were going to be good, and they're winning every way possible. Pitching, defense, they've got 7 home runs now. They've hit in their last 4 games. So, it's exciting. They're going to be good, and it's going to be rolled. The ACC conference between some of these teams should be fun to watch.
Yeah, speaking of Florida State, they had Penn coming to town, good old state capital, Tallahassee. Dominant pitch. Jamie Arnold, once again, fantastic. That guy's going to be elite every weekend. He rarely ever gets barreled. The slider, it's gross. Fastball, weird arm slot. He's going 1-1 this summer. Calling it right now, he's going 1-1. He's unbelievable. Any team would be very, very dumb to pass up on a talent like that. Friday night, you explode for 24 runs in 7 innings. You get on 20 hits, 18 of the 20 hits singles with 10 walks. Is that a way for Florida State maybe just finding some holes here and there? I watched the game. They were barreled. Every hit was barreled. It was a tough game for Penn in their first game of the season. You have your thoughts on Florida State, obviously. They turn around Saturday and Sunday and pretty handedly win those games as well. Do you see any gaps in Florida State's team as of yet?
Right now, so I'll say this. Offensively, I would say they maybe have guys that are, have experience. Like Max Williams is a junior, and he's played big time college baseball. Like Lodis, obviously transferring over last year from UNF, played a full season of shortstop, but he was hitting 6 or 7. Right, Gage Harrelson has a great year as a freshman at Texas Tech. Down year last year, he's hitting a leadoff now. Cal Fisher kind of bounced back and forth between the lineup and not playing. And he hit some home runs last year for Florida State, some big home runs, some go-ahead home runs he had. Well, now he's hitting 4-hole every day. So they've got guys that have played the game. Just maybe they're in positions in the lineup that maybe they haven't been before. And I think that they're having some getting used to that. I would say the quality of the at-bat, for me, looking forward to, maybe facing some better arms. And they will this weekend with Georgetown. Georgetown's got a couple better arms and stuff they've seen in some of these other games. But moving forward, the strikeouts are a little too high. Last year, they come out and they have one of the best seasons in school history offensively with first rounders James Stibbs and Cam Smith, also Jaime Ferrer and Marco Dingus, Cantu, Low D's. Like we talked, I mean, it was just they mashed up and down, and I mean, you could make the argument maybe they were the best or second best team in Omaha last year, and pitching depth kind of let them down. But no, I would say as of right now, just the quality of the at-bat up and down the lineup, I'd like to see get a little better once you start to improve the caliber of arm you're facing every week. And it seems, they're giving away some at-bats at times. And I know it's hard for me to say that sitting here as they've won most games pretty handily. But I'm looking forward to playing UNC. And we talked about their good pitching staff, and playing Wake Forest and playing Clemson and playing Virginia, if they get it figured out, and then the postseason, so on and so on, and just the depth of pitchers that you're going to face. I'd like to see the quality of that improve, and I think you'll see that come along as the season goes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the ACC is going to be an absolute gauntlet. I think. I mean, some teams in the ACC this year, NC State, Duke, Virginia even, we talked about. I mean, NC State this past week, you lose to Liberty on Tuesday. This past weekend, you lose to Ohio State, Alabama, and Coastal. I mean, those are three good teams. I mean, what Ohio State has going on over there, new coach, fantastic. Players love playing for the guy. I mean, it's good. I mean,
they've had some tough losses.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been too good. I mean, you lose to Richmond yesterday. You have 4 hits in 9 innings yesterday against a Richmond team. I mean, Richmond was 7-1. I mean, not knocking the Spiders by any means, but I mean, you're NC State. I mean, you're an ACC powerhouse every year in, year out. You got the preseason recognition. I mean, you're hitting 254 as a team. I mean, against the competition other than Ohio State, Alabama, and Coastal this past weekend, 254 is just not going to cut it, especially against you have a soft opening weekend and then you have midweeks. I mean, Liberty Liberty just beat Duke yesterday or today rather, 12-4, I believe. I mean, the only bright spot you got in your lineup, I mean, Chris McHugh, he's hitting 345. But, I mean, as a team, NC State's fielding 957, 12 errors in 8 games. I mean, that's just not going to win you games. I mean, especially now, like you're doing this now against, I'm not going to go out and say subpar opponents. I mean, this past weekend that's a tough weekend by any means. But, I mean, you lose games to Liberty, you lose games to Richmond. I mean, and you're making errors, you can't hit. I mean, 4 hits against the Richmond squad. I mean, again, not knocking Richmond. You're facing their midweek pitchers. I mean, you're not facing their weekend rotation. You're not facing their best three arms in regards to most teams on a weekend series. I mean, you get 4 hits there. I mean, Avant's got to turn something around before they get into ACC. They open up ACC play against Virginia Tech. I mean, that's not an easy pushover team by any means, especially in the ACC. They've got to figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the bigger things for NC State is maybe the 2 guys that you thought were going to be your biggest pieces in the bullpens, Jacob Duden and Cooper Consiglio. I mean, Duden's got a 12, and Consiglio's pitching in an 8. And I know it's 4 and 3 appearances respectively, but that's just not good enough from guys that you thought, were going to go out there and be dudes for you out of the bullpen. Now it's good stuff. It's good stuff, but I mean, hey, we just got to pitch it better. You got to find a way to get outs. Dom Fritton, 2 games, 9 innings, 6 runs, only one of them's earned. I mean, we got to play better defense, right? Like, I mean, your pitcher can only do so much if you're not making plays behind them, and it's been nothing spectacular offensively. I think everybody just assumed NC State. They've been there in the past. They always find a way to usually put themselves in the conversation, and we'll see how they transition. But no, I mean, 3-5 to start's definitely not ideal with some of the teams we've played.
I mean, looking at statistics wise, you look at their box scores from every game. They're pitching at like a 4.8 which by in no means is like a horrible, it's like a bad statistic. I mean, a 4.8 ERA is going to get it done for the most part. But I mean, do you think that has something to do with maybe you're hitting 254, you're not going to score a lot of runs, but when you field 957, do you think that skews an ERA maybe a little bit? I mean, you see their pitching staff's pitching good, but then the defense is not just is. I mean, like you said, one earned run, but he's allowed what was it 6?
6 runs.
Yeah, he's allowed 6 runs, but only one's earned. So I mean, you make an out, that's 5 less runs on the scorecard that you see. At the end of the day, we're not going to go too far into it. Is you just got to make better plays. I mean, you're an ACC program, perennial ACC powerhouse. You got to figure something out. I mean, I don't know what they got depth wise over there, but what they're fielding out there now is just it's not ideal. I mean, not ideal. Also, staying in the ACC, the Duke Blue Devils have been an absolute catastrophe of a program. And I mean, I'm not knocking Duke at all. I mean, Josh Jackson, love that guy over there. He recruited me out of high school. He's a fantastic pitching coach. I mean, I love that guy. You lose to Cornell on Friday night. You bounce back. You have 2 run rule victories Saturday, Sunday, and then you lose to Campbell last night, and then you come back and lose again today to Liberty by 8. I mean, you're hitting 286. That'll get it done. 286 is an above average season for a college lineup, I would say. I mean, you got 5 hitters hitting over 1,000 OPS. You're pitching at a 5.3, and then they're also fielding at a 957. I mean, and 2 of your starters, Talon's supposed to be one of the best premier arms in the ACC. In 2 starts, he's only gone 4 2/3. Duke's got to figure something out. I mean, especially when they get an ACC play. I mean, especially losing midweeks, whatever, man. I mean, Andrew Healy, he's got to figure something out too. He's been their midweek starter yesterday and last week. He's got an 11+ ERA. I mean, they got to figure something. He's supposed to be a premier lefty arm too. I mean, he's good. He's a good ball player. I just don't know what's going on over there in Duke. I mean, you got anything on the Blue Devils?
Not great, right? Not great. I mean, you got supposed, two-way superstar Kyle Johnson pitching at a 6. I mean, not 600 runs in 9 innings, 5 walks in 9 innings. I mean, punched out 9, but Talon. I mean, great stuff out of the bullpen in his career with only one career start coming into this year. Maybe making that transition's not what they thought it could be. And like you said, I mean, 4 2/3 in 2 starts. It's just not getting it done, right? Like that's just you can't have that because at the end of the day, when your starter gets shelled or your pitch count gets up too high, all you're doing is stressing everybody else on that pitching staff. It's the same thing with making errors. Like you make the errors, sure, you might cost your team runs. Yes, that could happen. But then you're also pushing this pitcher's pitch count up, which makes you bring in this guy 2 innings earlier than you thought you were going to have to. Well, then he's canned for the weekend. Well, then you got to pitch more arms than you thought you were going to have to. And it's hard to piece together weekends if you don't get good starting pitching. That's what that's you can see it every year up and down college baseball. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get enough arms to do that. And Duke, the way they've started is just not what you want to see. I mean, maybe Cincinnati's a big time team this year that's going to break out. And that we'll look back on those losses as not something, that was, to be looked down upon. Campbell and Liberty back to back on a midweek, you give up 9 and you give up 12. I mean, you give up 11 to Cornell fresh out of the gym. Their first game of the year. It's just not good enough. It's not good enough on the mound for the Blue Devils. And, Coach Pollard is, I'm sure, had plenty of opportunities to move on. He's chosen to stay at Duke, even with all the challenges that come with being at a prestigious academic institution. So we'll see what they get rolling. They got Northwestern this weekend, and then they'll play Cal first weekend of conference play. And I mean, at this point, disappointing, but we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, and to reiterate with the whole bullpen starting pitching thing, I mean, it also goes to show, like, Talon, he's been pitching on Sundays. I mean, most of the time, and Sundays are the days that you're fiending through bullpen arms. At that point, you've kind of ran through your guys on Friday and Saturday, and then on Sunday, you're just hoping your starter gives you five, at least 4 innings. And I mean, when you go 4 2/3 combined over 2 starts, I mean, that's just not a recipe for success on a Sunday. I mean, speaking of Sundays, absolute hell of a game between Alabama and Ohio State this past Sunday. Jack DeLongchamps was amazing color commentator for that game on D1 Baseball on Sunday. Shout out him. Pencil Talk, love that guy to death. Justin LeBron, that might be 2 of the most impressive home runs that I've seen from a hitter, especially at that stature. He's 6 foot 190. I mean, that's a strong build, but as a shortstop, being able to go backside 430 plus to right center field, I mean, that's impressive. Especially as a true sophomore. I mean, he was a freshman All-American by any means. He was a fantastic player last year for the Tide. But, I mean, Alabama goes 3-0 on the weekend, beating Coastal, NC State, and then coming back. Ohio State down 10-0. Comes back, scores 12 unanswered to walk off Ohio State in the ninth. Will Hodo hits a walk-off 3-run homer off the construction building in right center field. I know you love some Justin LeBron, Callaway.
Listen, we watched him play last year at Alabama, and he was a freshman, phenom. I saw him play this fall in Tallahassee against Florida State when Alabama came down there. I mean, the kid is just a superstar. I mean, he's listed 6'2", 180. I mean, that's a slender frame. Kid's got 10 extra base hits already in 9 games, 6 pumps. And those balls he was hitting this weekend against Ohio State, oh my gosh. I mean, it is impressive. He is a bona fide superstar. And he's what makes the Tide go, I mean, it's just he's good. Playing a premium position too, 4 stolen bases. I mean, listen, you're down 10-0. I mean, what are you saying in the dugout there to keep the guys going?
I mean, I would tell you 299 teams in the country give up at that point.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a fantastic response from the Tide. I mean, especially on a Sunday game. I mean, you win 2 prior games, Friday and Saturday. Vibes are high. You go down 10-0 early against a Big Ten team in Ohio State. I mean, not a typical big baseball matchup, huh? I mean, that's a gridiron game right there, Ohio State, Alabama. That's probably for a national title game at some point. But
I was about to say Zeke Elliott,
Yeah. I mean, anyways, I mean, that's just a fantastic response from Alabama. I mean, Ohio State didn't help themselves at all. I mean, they ended up walking the house there towards the end that led to these big homers from LeBron and Hodo. Nebraska this past week, high hopes coming into the year. Just, I mean, you got tough matchups. I mean, you play UC Irvine, and then you come in this weekend, a tough game against, you lose your midweek to Grand Canyon. Not an easy matchup by any means. And then you come down to the Teak in Lafayette, and you drop 2 out of 3. You win Friday night, and then get swept on a doubleheader. I mean, the environment, Matt Daggs, fantastic coach, great coach down there in Lafayette. I mean, that's a gritty bunch, Callaway.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're Lafayette. You're coming off, opening weekend. You lose 2 out of 3, right, to a team that was picked last in their conference preseason. Then you come out, game 1 against Nebraska. You got your guy on the mound, Chase Morgan, going. He only goes 4 innings, gives up 4 runs, only 1 earned. So, you lose 6-1. Not a lot of offense to speak of, right? So what do you do? What does it take? What does it take to turn something around, right? Good starting pitching. McGehee comes out the next day, fires a gem, offense gets going, boom, they win that one. Then you turn around in the second game, and Andrew Drummond throws a complete game, right? I mean, and it's funky from the left side. It's a change up. It's a couple pitches for strikes, but I mean, it's about 86. I mean, he's not firing that thing in there. So the pitchability lefty gets it done for the Cajun. They get some runs going. So you think you're riding high, and you turn around, you lose to McNeese yesterday. You get shut out 3-0.
Yeah, you think throwing a CG on a Sunday, I mean, your bullpen's fresh. I mean, you have all the arms in the world you can think of coming off a ranked weekend series win. And then you played McNeese over there in Lake Charles, and it's just you get shut out.
I mean, no words, I guess. I mean, that's probably not one that you can afford to lose. They got Southeastern Louisiana, after that, and then out to Irvine, California to play UC Irvine. The schedule doesn't get easier. That's a solid team. And then you got UNC Wilmington coming into town, usually pretty good at the top of their conference-ish. Dallas Baptist, and then Troy. So this schedule doesn't lighten up for the Cajuns, and I think it's offensive consistency is probably going to be what decides what the Cajun season ends up looking like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense for Matt Deggs has always been a problem. I mean, they've always been able. I mean, they've got sorry, I can't remember. What was the guy's name a couple of years ago? He's throwing for the Astros now.
The pitcher?
Yeah.
Spencer Aaron Getty.
Yeah, Aaron Getty. I mean, they were rolling him out on weekends a couple of years ago. I mean, that guy had a sub 2.5 ERA for an entire season. I mean, he's in the bigs now. They've always had good starting pitching. I think it was just always the problem with Lafayette is being able to put the bats together. I mean, they've always had the talent. I mean, they had DeBarge last year. I mean, they had Trey LaFleur. I mean, you got the guys to do it, but they can just never. They really rarely ever have every single hitter in their lineup on at the same time, and I think that's going to be a problem. Matt Deggs has got to figure it out, and I mean, I think Lafayette's going to be a tough Sun Belt opponent, especially at home against teams in conference play. I'm not out on Lafayette yet. I mean, you win a big weekend series. Weekend series at this point is really all that matters. I mean, for mid majors, maybe not as much as Power 5, Power 4 these days, but I mean, at the end of the day, the bat's got to show up. You can't get shut out against McNeese.
And it always looks a little different, when there's years when you've got, DeBarge and you've got Julian Brock behind the plate who went in the 8th round to the Rangers. And you've got, some veterans. They had Ty Robertson, was an absolute speed demon at the top of the lineup. He got drafted by, and now I've forgotten, in like the 18th round by the Padres, actually. So, I mean, they've had some guys, offensively. A couple of years ago, I think they stole like 150 bags. So, like, I think that's maybe the profile, if they can run that kind of offense that they would maybe like to run. It's probably a difficult offense for a team to run. You really need to get everybody to buy in the way they do things. They're mixing up lineups every day. You might be hitting lead off one day. You might be hitting 9-hole the next day. You could be out of the lineup the next day. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a matchup-based thing. If it's you went 0 for 4 today, hit the bench. The greatest motivator of all, the bench. So, I mean, they got a lot of new guys, it seems like. And like we talked about Florida State before, and the guys coming back are in different situations, different, they're needed a little bit more than maybe they have been in the past. So we'll see what it looks like going forward. Certainly not what they were looking for offensively thus far through 8 or 9 games here. But, you got Chase Morgan and Andrew Hamon looks to be coming around, and McGehee and a couple of those bullpen arms. So the schedule doesn't lighten up. So you got to, button your bootstraps and get to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one thing that they got to figure out some fluidity with that lineup. I mean, I understand it's early in the season. You're trying to figure out guys to plug and play wherever they can play for the best of the team. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to find your 9, 10, 11 guys that are going to be everyday staples in your lineup. And I mean, it's just a killer for confidence, especially, I mean, being a college athlete myself, it's a thing where you're hitting leadoff one game and you don't know if you're going to be starting the next game. I mean, you could go 1 for 3 and get benched. I mean, that's something that you don't want as a player. I mean, I don't think any player wants to be thinking about that as they're playing. So, I mean, I don't know if Matt Deggs, They've got to figure something out. I don't know if he's just trying to figure out his best 9, 10, 11 guys that he's got, but they got to figure something over there out in Lafayette. And Florida, yesterday against Stetson, absolute, pardon my French, I'm going to say it, shit show in DeLand.
Let them know how you really feel, right?
I mean, I understand the whole safety bag, whatever. I think it's good for the game. I like it. It's something. It protects the first baseman's Achilles from getting absolutely ruptured by a metal cleat. I mean, those things that gets dangerous over there. I don't see a problem with that. The ruling. If you don't step on the safety bag and get challenged before you come back because you haven't touched the bag yet, I think that's the stupidest rule that I've ever heard of. And I mean, I know the NCAA is not the best with rules in the past, but I mean, can you not think of a better way to deal with that situation?
I mean, to be honest, I was kind of unaware that the white bag was supposedly out of play.
I had no idea.
I don't know if that was necessarily broadcasted out there very, very much. I mean, in different broadcasts that you watch. And I don't even know if they told the people on the broadcast to let everybody know. And I mean, it's first base, right? So I get it's a safety thing, but like, hey, if your foot, if you're sprinting, busting it down the line, trying to beat something out, and you accidentally hit the white bag instead of the orange bag, like we're penalizing teams for that now. I don't think I've ever seen a game under protest, so we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know if this is whether the call was right or wrong from did he hit the white bag or did he hit the orange bag, or if it is a misinterpretation and the rule is applied incorrectly, if that is what inherently decides whether the protest is successful or not. So there's no telling how this is going to go, but it'll be interesting to see if it does.
Well, I can tell you exactly how it's going to go. I mean, I looked into it a little bit. If the NCAA reviews this protest and they see that there was not a violation of the rules, then Florida's got to travel, get on the bus, hop back in, and they got to drive back down to DeLand, and they've got to start in the 7th inning, and they've got to continue play from when that player's safe on. And I mean, that game's tied 2-2 at that point. And if they refuse, Florida gets a loss on the schedule. And I mean, I don't think Kevin O'Sullivan's going to refuse that situation by any means. But I mean, that's just, if that actually comes to fruition, which I don't think it will, I think the NCAA is going to look at this and be like, hey, man, like, there's a freeze frame picture. His foot's on the white bag, like halfway on the white bag. That's a violation of the rules. I don't think that that's going to come to any amount to anything by any means. But if it does, if the NCAA is like, well, I mean, it could go this way, it could go this way. Florida might be playing Stetson again from the 7th on a random Wednesday in April.
I do not envy them if that is what they have to do, is load on the bus and go back down there and play 2 innings. That would be absolutely brutal, which they do play again in Gainesville. I don't know if the NCAA would make them, make Stetson the home team and Florida the away team and just play it at Conard Ballpark when they have to go up there anyway. If that's what they were going to do, that would make way more sense than making, not saying Florida doesn't have enough money to rent some buses and roll down there on a Wednesday to finish up that game, but it just kind of seems like a lot for 2 innings. But nothing's probably going to happen, to be honest. That if I had to guess, I would say nothing happens and Florida just gets the win and everybody goes their separate ways.
Yeah, no, I don't think anything's going to come of that. Well, we had a lot of midweek mayhem yesterday at Callaway. I mean, you have A&M losing to Texas State. Alex Valentin out of the pen for Texas State goes 4 2/3, allows 1 earned there in the 9th inning with 5 Ks. Did you watch what he was doing on the mound?
I saw it on Twitter. And I even flipped it on, and I was like, "Is this guy tweaking right now? Like, what is going on?" Like, I had shades of watching
Wake Forest.
Yes, Cole Rowland, dude, that guy's insane. But no, I mean, it was wild to watch. And I'll tell you what, that guy was fired up, and that fired me up. That was a huge win for Texas State, going and beating the number 1 team in the country there, A&M. And that guy loved every second of it.
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic showing. I mean Texas State back-to-back weeks. You beat Oklahoma State 4-2 last week. Turn around, beat the number one team in the country, Texas A&M, at their place 7-3. I mean A&M, they threw 9 pitchers yesterday. They walked 10. I mean I don't know if that's something they're just trying to. I mean at the end of the day for A&M, this game does not mean anything for them. I mean, maybe their ranking early on, they might drop to 2 this week if they drop a game this weekend, something maybe like that. But at the end of the day, their RPI, I mean, I think Texas State's going to be a decent program in the Sun Belt. It's not going to tank them by any means. It's good to see some. I mean, they're throwing 9 guys. I mean, they're seeing guys come in, see what they can do in a midweek. It's a test for maybe players down in the SEC roles down the line. Don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what all these Power 5, Power 4 programs are doing. They're just trying to find their 9, 10 guys that they can throw out in any situation they want and get it done for them. Staying in the Sun Belt, Troy goes on the road to Starkville.
Did they really?
Yeah, knocks off Mississippi State.
That's a huge win.
Huge win. That's a huge win. I mean, Adam Polinsky for the Trojans, I mean, he's 94, 96 sinkers. I mean, it was electric stuff, 86-mile-an-hour slider. It was fantastic. Jacob Pruitt from Mississippi State was absolutely lights out, had 9 Ks in 4 innings. Fantastic stuff. His only run given up was Shane Lewis, ended up hitting 2 home runs in that game. One of them off of Pruitt went 432 feet, absolute bomb. Mississippi State goes to the pen in the 5th. Shane Lewis decides to he goes in his golf bag, grabs out a 6-iron, absolutely scoops a ball off the turf, hits it about 432 feet, according to TrackMan, in the 5th inning, which leads to a 5-0 lead for Troy there in the 5th, and then they turn around. Noah Sullivan hits a grand slam in the bottom of the 5th to cut the deficit to 5-4. Troy goes to the pen. Jay Dill comes out in the 6th, gives up another. It's 5-5 tie ball game at that point. And then Grady Gorgon has a bases loaded jam with 1 out in the bottom of the 8th. Strikes out Noah Sullivan and then comes back 0-2 slider, strikes out batter to end the inning without giving up any runs. And then in the top of the 9th, Stephen Meyer with 2 outs. 3-0 green light. Absolutely love it. Best thing I've ever seen from Ben Wolgamott in my entire life. 2 outs in the 9th, tie ball game, green light. Fastball about 2.5, 3 inches off the plate. Stephen Meyer pulls it about 415 feet to right field to give Troy a 6-5 lead. And then Grady Gorgon comes in and slams the door in the 9th to give Troy that win. I mean, that's a big win for the Trojans, Callaway.
Yeah, listen, you had Auburn on the ropes, right? Some would say, some would be you and me. They were the better team that night, and some things didn't go their way, some of of their own doing. And you unfortunately lose that one in a heartbreaking fashion. And you come here and you get a 5-0, and you can just kind of feel it slipping away, right? You just kind of feel it going again. You're like, oh, well, here we go again, right? Like it's just we're going to find a way to lose this again, right? And you don't. You find your way to make it happen. Listen, you punch out 20 times at the plate. Now that probably has more to do with the arms Mississippi State was throwing out there. I mean, they had some guys with some serious stuff, and you found a way.
I did some research. Troy had less than 20 strikeouts as a team heading into that game.
So you double and then some your strikeout total for the season. But guess what?
You find a way to win.
Home runs win baseball games, and that's what they did. I mean, Shane Lewis, 5 or 6 home runs already this year. That is absolutely massive for the Trojans, who are replacing a lot of new guys coming in that building, in that lineup, offensively. So having him just maybe get back to some sort of form that he was 2 years ago when he won Sun Belt Player of the Year would be absolutely massive for the Trojans. And and a little bit of a homecoming game there as he, started his career out at Mississippi State. Didn't end up getting to play there. Goes JUCO, comes to Troy, has the huge breakout year, Sun Belt Player of the Year. Not necessarily the year he was looking for last year, and put his head down, got back to work, came back to Troy this year for one last ride, and hey, maybe he showed the Bulldogs what they were missing, and that maybe they shouldn't have let him go. So I know that was big for Shane being back home in the state of Mississippi, and even bigger for the Trojans, man. I mean, this team this is what it shows you is they deserve to be on the field. I wouldn't call this a massive upset. Sometimes you see, Omaha beat LSU and you're like, that's a crazy upset. And you look at this game and Troy's put themselves in a position where you look at it and you go, okay, Mississippi State lost to a great team, good team, right? So I don't think it's anything negative for either one of these teams. It's two good teams. Two teams we'll probably be seeing in the postseason, just duking it out, right? And this is what you love to see. Yeah, the 3-0 green light was maybe a little hat tip to, hey, we've punched out 20 times tonight. Let me see if he can run one out of here, right? And Stephen Meyer, hey, he paid him off. He carried the bat almost all the way to first base. But
they were not happy about that.
No, they weren't. But at the end of the day, I mean, Grady Gorgon dealt with some injury issues in his career, so that was big for him to come in there and do that for the Trojans, finish it out. For them, love to see Noah Thigpen coming in there as a freshman, willing to come in and throw strikes, willing to come in and pitch in on guys. That is something that I've seen, across college baseball. People don't like to pitch in. So hitters just kind of lean out over the plate and, kind of get your barrel to anything there. So going in as a freshman there, not being afraid to, go in on some of these hitters was big for them. And we'll see what he becomes and what his career comes and what the rest of this season holds for the Trojans.
I mean, arguably, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I mean, Troy had a bounce back game tonight. I mean, they got home at about 1 a.m. last night from Starkville and had to turn around 4 o'clock first pitch today against UAB. I mean, they came out and handled business again today. I mean, would you arguably say that's maybe a bigger win?
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. I mean, yeah, like what gets all the notoriety is coming out and beating Mississippi State on the road in their house, right? But to me, I mean, more impressively, something that speaks to, the leadership on your team and the maturity of your team is being able to come out the very next day after a super emotional win on a Tuesday night. You drive all the way back to Troy. You have an earlier first pitch at 4 o'clock today against a lesser team in UAB. No disrespect there, but they're not quite an SEC team, right? And you go out there and you handle business. It didn't really feel as if they were ever in a position to lose that game. So I think that speaks to the maturity of the coaching staff and the players in that locker room to go out there and handle business, because dropping games to teams that you're more talented than is upsetting. And the margin for error is a little lesser so when you are a mid-major team. So you need to handle business. So not letting that huge win Tuesday night have any effect on the way that they came out and played Wednesday night it speaks to the leadership that they have at Troy.
Yeah. I mean, I think Meade's putting a great product out on their field, and I think they're going to be a fantastic come Sun Belt play. Staying in the Sun Belt, Southern Miss goes on the road to Ole Miss. Not the best showing. I mean, the bats came around for Southern Miss. I mean, they put up 8. I mean, not knocking Southern Miss by any means, but the bats have always been a problem for them in Hattiesburg. And, I mean, you put up 8, and the pitching's always been solid for Southern Miss, but you give up 15. Do you think that maybe there was some going on with Southern Miss yesterday? I mean, the bats came out hot. I mean, you score 8. I mean, if you're Southern Miss and you score 8 going into the game, you're like, oh, we won this game by 4 or 5 runs. But you end up giving up 15. And, I mean, I know the beer showers over there at Swayze Field are nothing to play with, but, I mean, maybe is there a midweek issue with Southern Miss?
I would say that. I think most mid-major teams, I mean, pitching maybe not at the top level is the issue. Pitching depth can be the issue. So, if you're a little thin on a midweek because you had a stressful weekend on the mound with guys getting up there and pitch counts, and we're still early in the season, so guys aren't going as deep into games as they will come the next couple weeks or so. So it could have just been an issue, getting a little further deeper into that pen. And when that happens, maybe you have guys that are A, a little less experienced, or B, with a little less stuff. I mean, I don't think this is an issue. Seeing as literally last midweek, they beat Mississippi State 3-0. So pitching didn't seem to be an issue there, right? I think Ole Miss is a little more offensive, I would say, than Mississippi State is. So no, I'm not really worried about Southern Miss. I mean, listen, it's a good program. I mean, they're ranked. They know what they're doing. They know what to do how to get through a season. That coaching staff has been through plenty of it. So no, I'm not worried about Southern Miss. I mean, I just think it's sometimes you get got, right. And when you play a team like Ole Miss who can swing it, sometimes it looks a little ugly, but that's okay. Tip your cap and go get them next time, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Ostrander, he's going to get it turned around. I mean, for this upcoming weekend's massive for Southern Miss. I mean, we're going to head into our series previews this weekend. We're going to give you guys some picks. I'm just going to start off. Southern Miss travels to TCU. I mean, you have a big weekend series last week against Louisiana Tech, Southern Miss, and you take 2 out of 3 from them. I mean, that's a fantastic weekend series win. I mean, Louisiana Tech's no team to sleep on. I mean, that's a big team in the CUSA down there. And then, I mean, you drop a game in the midweek, whatever. I mean, you go on the road to TCU, nationally ranked program. I mean, this is a big weekend for Southern Miss. Yeah, I mean, hey,
TCU came out. They lose their Friday night guy before the season starts to UCL injury. Abel was a really, really solid guy for them, making a transition into the rotation, and he goes down. You respond. You go 4-0 opening weekend. You come out. You beat Michigan last Friday, right? You lose a tough one to Arkansas 2-1, and then Kansas State kind of hands it to you on Sunday 10-2. You respond. You play Tarleton. Maybe not the toughest test, but you get the win. We've seen some close midweek games. I think that just happens. And then you get Southern Miss coming to town. I mean, Southern Miss is going to roll out there. They're not thumbing guys throwing 80, 85 at you. I mean, Middleton can really, really run it up there. Sibley's thrown a lot of innings in college. Colby Allen is a really good arm. But, TCU, I think, is probably overachieved from what people thought, maybe, especially with Abel getting hurt. It should be a good matchup. I think it's early in the season, so it's good to see what you got a little bit, see where you're at. Like you said, I mean, Southern Miss has already played Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and obviously La Tech's always a good, solid program. So that's a barometer, that's for sure. And then TCU, obviously, with the playing in that tournament with Michigan, Arkansas, and Kansas State last week, they've been tested too. But the test just continues. TCU at home. Give me TCU with a bounce back. Last weekend they won Friday night against Michigan, and then, like I said, that Arkansas game was 2-1. So I like the Horned Frogs at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take TCU also. I mean, I think Southern Miss might grab one, in a close fashion. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout by any means. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Southern Miss's offense can keep up. I think pitching staff's going to carry them all the way through Sunbelt play and into the tournament. But yeah, no, I think TCU is going to win at least 2 out of 3. They might drop a game 2-1, 3-2, 4-3 over the weekend. But I mean, I think it's going to be a great series, and I think the Horned Frogs come away with a victory. South Carolina travels to Clemson this weekend. We were speaking earlier that it's going to be a home and neutral. What do we got there?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Tigers. They can really swing it. Aiden Kanak is a pretty good arm for them. He's given up 6 earned run in 9 innings so far, but that's not who he is. Ethan Darden, it's a different look. He's kind of at a weird angle, and it's a lot of sliders and it's a lot of changeups. But I mean, only 2 earned runs in 10 innings. He's been good for them too. And then obviously, I mean, they can swing it with Canarella is not even been one of their better players already this year, and he's probably the biggest draft hype guy that they've got. Dominic Lista has been really good for them, hitting 460. Tristan McClatty hitting 400, right? Homer, couple doubles. So Clemson's a really solid program all the way around. I mean, South Carolina, I feel like, is a team that kind of rides under the radar now, maybe. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen pretty much anything on the Gamecocks this year. I mean, they're not getting coverage from anywhere. So, I mean, I don't know if that has anything to do with their play. I mean, I think they're playing pretty well, considering who they've played. But, I mean, I think Clemson's had a problem on the mound. I think they've had a problem with their bullpen, figuring out guys who can come in and shut down innings. I mean, they played games against NC A&T this past weekend, and final scores 14-8. I mean, you can't give up 8 runs to those programs, especially in ACC play when it comes down to it. Walks are an issue for Clemson. I mean, I like the Tigers this weekend, but I would not be surprised if the Gamecocks gave them a run for their money.
Yeah, South Carolina schedule, 9-0. How many teams have they played that are postseason caliber teams? I don't know. Matthew Becker has been good for them on the mound, 11 1/3, 17 punchies, count it, 0 walks, 0 HBPs. So when you go no free passes and 17 punchies in 11 innings, that's pretty good. Ethan Petrie's the headliner for South Carolina and has been for a while now. I mean, he's OPS in 1,400 and 450 with 5 extra base hits. So he's really good for them. I mean, Nolan Naraki has been pretty good for them too. And as this, matchup comes around, he was at Clemson last year as a freshman, pretty highly touted guy for them, playing second base for South Carolina. So I don't know. I mean, I like Clemson. I think they're a little more tested, and I trust Aiden Kanak to get it kind of figured out after maybe 2 not so awesome starts. He was a freshman All-American for a reason. It's a lively heater and a Bugs Bunny parachute changeup. So I'll go with Clemson.
Staying in the ACC, Miami drives up the road from Coral Gables to Gainesville. I haven't seen a lot of Miami this year either. I mean, I feel like they're not getting the coverage that they deserve. They travel up to a tough Florida team. What you got in that matchup?
Florida. I like Florida.
I'll agree.
No disrespect to Miami. It's just Liam Peterson might be the best right-handed arm in the country in 26. I mean, it's a lively heater, and really what we saw last year was walks became an issue for Peterson as a freshman, and he's kind of cut back on that. Pierce Capola has really kind of reached what people thought he was going to be. I mean, he's not walking anybody and striking out everybody. McNeely, Randy Johnson, right? They're throwing out Randy Johnson on a Sunday, so it's pretty decent there for the Gators, right? I mean, it's a experienced lineup. Colby Shelton and Luke Heyman. Brody Donay has been absolutely hammering the cover off the ball. If you don't count yesterday, he only had 1 strikeout in their first 7-ish games with several home runs. So he's kind of had a swing change and knocked out some of the moving parts in that swing, spread it out, and he's just an absolute animal in the box. I mean, huge 6'4", 5 guy, catcher, big body, physically imposing. He's been knocking the cover off the ball. Blake Sear actually transferred over from Miami, has been playing pretty well. Kyle Jones transferred over from Stetson. He was a freshman All-American last year. So I really like Florida's rotation, a couple guys in their bullpen, and their lineup, really. I mean, I think Florida is an Omaha caliber team. I mean, when do we not say that, right? O'Sullivan has them rolling every single year. Whether they look good early or not, they usually always find a way at the end. And this year they just happen to, come together a little earlier than they did last year. They usually are dropping some of these midweek games. They seem to be right on track. And, I like the Gators. Dare I say sweep?
I mean, Sully's going to get those guys right. I mean, you go 28 and 26 last year. You find your way at the end of it in the semifinals in Omaha. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time that I saw a team do that. I mean, you go into a Clemson Super and you sweep that. I mean, Sully's going to find a way with those guys, especially in a weekend series against Miami, which they always find a way to win that series. I think Miami, at the end of the day, I just have never seen them be able to put it together. I mean, they always have the pieces. I mean, they always have the pitching, they have the hitting, but they can never find a way. Like they have the pitching hitting name wise, but they can never find a way to put it all together on the field. And I think that's just always been a big issue for the Hurricanes. I mean, in my lifetime, I don't think I've ever seen them in Omaha that I can remember of. And I mean, I think Florida takes this handedly. I don't think it might be. I think it will be close, maybe one game, but relatively, I think Florida wins the series hands down. I mean, staying in the SEC here. I mean, last one we got Vandy going to UCLA. That's not a matchup you see often, especially when Vandy's on the road. I think it's gonna be a tough matchup. I mean, UCLA is a good program. They've had some good wins this year. Vandy's also had some good wins. I mean, they beat UC Irvine. You sweep Air Force in a midweek series. You beat Nebraska. I mean, I think Vandy's going to go on the road, and I think they're going to take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I mean, I like Vanderbilt. I mean, R.J. Austin is really, really coming on here as a junior. I mean, he's really just absolutely mashing the ball all over the place. 3 triples already, 2 doubles, a homer, 6 bags. He's hitting 455. I mean, so he's a guy, that's for sure. I mean, he got Vanderbilt's season off with a bang, ripping a double right off the bat, and that just kind of kick-started what was to be, his season. Sawyer Hawks, really good for them. 10 Ks, 1 walk, 6 innings. Cody Boker, 2 starts, 9 innings, 2 hits, 4 walks, 12 Ks though. So we'll see what Vanderbilt, does. They've got a lot of guys on the mound that they're kind of, feeling out with maybe McIlvain kind of has not been what they thought he was going to be coming in as a big, big name freshman. But they got some other guys that step up around there. And Vanderbilt's always going to figure something out, right? Tim Corbin is consistently a couple years back, viewed as maybe the best coach in the sport. I mean, maybe Tony D has taken that moniker now from what the animal he's built Tennessee into, but maybe this is a year Vanderbilt kind of figures a little something out and gets a little deeper in the tournament after making it in. So I like Vandy coming over top of the West Coast team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. We're going to the Lone Star State here. I mean, we've got some big weekend matchups and these classics down here that I absolutely love. By the way, I love these. Not so necessarily tournaments at the beginning of the year, kind of these round robins that they got going, but there's always a winner. Someone always finds a way to hang out on top. We're going to start in Frisco. We got Kansas State, Sam Houston, Nebraska, and LSU. Big weekend from Kansas State this past weekend. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, good bounce back. Will they be able to carry it in to this weekend? I think so. I mean, I think Kansas State, dare I say, sweeps the weekend. I think they play LSU Friday night, so they're facing a big arm Friday night from LSU. Not necessarily ideal for Kansas State. I mean, you wish you play that LSU on maybe a Sunday if it comes down to it, bullpen arms wise. But I mean, I think Kansas State finds a way to pull through.
Interesting. You kind of got, you got Nebraska coming in off a kind of disappointing weekend, I would say. I mean, especially after you get that win Friday night and then you just bang, bang, lose the next 2. I mean, you got to turn around and come into something like this. I mean, LSU, powerhouse, right? Kansas State coming off their best week. They're coming in hot. LSU, I would not say is coming in cold even after that loss to Omaha. They're just kind of trotted along. We'll see how tonight's game goes against DBU, but LSU's going to throw out premier arms and they're going to throw out premier bats, and they're a premier program. If you want me to pick a winner, I mean, I guess we'll go LSU. I think Nebraska's coming in cold. I think Kansas State, had a good weekend last weekend, but is that the team they really are? I'll go with consistency in LSU.
Yeah, not hating. I love LSU. I think it's a good program. I mean, I think they're going to be in Omaha at the end of it. You got to Las Vegas. D1 baseball's got a nice tournament that they got set up here. I mean, you got Texas, you got Texas Tech, you got Washington, and Illinois. I mean, it's not the biggest lineup that's just going to jump out at you. I mean, in the past, Texas Tech, that's a big name. It's a good program. I mean, Texas Tech and perennially wise has been fantastic. I mean, they've been able to make it to Omaha multiple years, multiple regional hosts, multiple super regionals. This past 2 years, they just have not been able to put it together. They've got something rolling down there in Lubbock that I don't really know if they're going to be able to fix anytime soon. I mean, it has not been good. I've stated this previously. I think Texas sweeps this weekend very easily. I don't think it's going to be a problem for them whatsoever. I mean, being able to hang out in Las Vegas for 4 days sounds pretty fun to me, though, to be fair. I wish I got some tournament time over there in Vegas. But I digress. I think Texas is going to take this pretty easily.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's probably the way it lines up. Texas might be, a little better than people thought they were going to be. Schloss can really coach. He's done it everywhere he's been. So we knew that they would eventually get it figured out, but Texas is playing well. Some would argue, though, the best player in the whole thing plays for Texas Tech. Mount Vesuvius over. You got T.J. Pompey, right, a sophomore for Texas Tech. For my money, might be the best player in this whole thing. He's hitting 409, 1,500 OPS because he's got 4 pumps already. Exciting player to watch if you do end up watching Texas Tech play a little bit. And you got a couple of Big Ten teams who are coming there and, scrap and compete a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just looked it up. LSU DBU, middle of the 8th inning. LSU leads 7-3 over DBU. I mean, it's been a tough game for DBU at the end of it. I mean, LSU goes up 5-0. DBU responds with 3 in the bottom of the 5th. LSU ends up responding with 2 in the top of the 6th. But I mean, just looking at the box score, haven't seen much of this game. LSU 11 hits to DBU's 3. DBU has 3 errors to LSU's 1 error. LSU has left 14 runners on base today to DBU's 2.
What you're telling me is this should be worse.
Yeah, no, just looking at it, I mean, it should be way worse than it is. Yeah, I mean, LSU's came to play. I mean, they're staying in Houston for the next 4 or 5 days to hang out and have a good time, and hopefully, for your sake, win a weekend little tournament there. But yeah, I mean, that's rough for DBU's pitching. I mean, you got 3 errors in the field, you got 14 left on base. I mean, well, that's good for pitching wise, but I mean, in that rate, you're walking guys, you're giving up hits. I mean, you leave 14 on base and only give up 11 hits. You've walked quite a few amount of players. I haven't even looked at the box score. I mean, we'll get into that next week when we get into this. But going to Houston for the Astros Foundation Classic, we got Tennessee, Arizona, A&M, Oklahoma State, Mississippi State, and Rice. That's an absolute loaded field. I mean, I think this is going to be a real test for a lot of teams. I mean, you've seen Mississippi State play Southern Miss and Troy in their midweeks, which they've dropped. Other than that, haven't really played too many good squads. Tennessee hasn't really played anybody as of yet. Arizona's had a tough opening stretch. A&M's dropped 2 out of 3, or 2 straight, rather. Oklahoma State lost a midweek last week to Texas State. I mean, that's a tough field.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you sign up for these things to get tested, right? I mean, Tennessee's probably coming in the hottest, right? I mean, it's hard to be better than they've been thus far. So I don't think you go into these tournaments, looking to, win, because do they even hand out a trophy at the end of these things? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's just trying to get better, right? And that's what you're trying to do at this point in the season. Arizona, necessarily not the greatest, start in the world that I thought they would have. But offensively, I think they'll be okay. It's just how the pitching ends up coming together for Arizona. I think that'll be the question. But they've been in two of these thus far since the season started. These tournament-like things. The first one did not go too well. Maybe they'll have a little better showing this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm just gonna have to see Tennessee coming out 3-0. I mean, I think they sweep the weekend. And we got Liam Doyle coming out on Friday nights. I mean, that lineup's going to keep you in pretty much every game that you're going to be in. Mississippi State hasn't really showed me anything by any means against good opponents. I mean, A&M's coming in as cold as you can possibly be, dropping a game to Cal Poly and Texas State. Arizona, not with the best start. I mean, Rice is just kind of in this tournament because they're in Houston, I feel like. I mean, no knock on Rice. They've won multiple national titles. That's a good program, but recently that hasn't really brought much. I mean, yeah, I love Tennessee.
But the mute button has always won. I get eaten up alive by the mute button all the time. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. The AC started blowing, so I had to turn it off. So you didn't hear the wind going in my ear. But no, it's like you said, if you're going to pick a winner, it's got to be Tennessee. Liam Doyle, electricity. So that kind of, for me, makes you go 1-0. I mean, they're hitting the cover off the ball, and they've got depth. And that's kind of what something like this looks like. I mean, Ryan Prager's going to give you a shot. That's for sure. He ain't given up another run yet. And then I'd love to see Arizona put up a better fight than they did last time because I think they've got something there, especially offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Brendan Summerhill, he's a fantastic bat for Arizona there. I mean, Ryan Prager, granted, it's against Elon and Cal Poly. I mean, that guy's been good his entire college career. I mean, not knocking him by any means, but I'm curious to see how he plays against upper competition, for the better word for it. But Keller, we're coming to an end to our show here. I mean, do you got anything you want to add?
No. I mean, we pretty much talked about everything. Everything I got. It's just there's so many good teams. Everybody's got hope this time of the year. I have two new favorite players, Justin LeBron and I think it's Ava Arquette, I believe is how you pronounce it. We talked about him in the preview since I had Arizona State or Oregon State in my Omaha. The transfer from Washington, shortstop, big kid, like 6'5", playing short, little DJ LeMahieu build, a little more physical though. It's just been mashing balls for Oregon State. They've got a little something to figure out from a depth perspective. Dax Whitney, who's their superstar freshman, big time stuff, got kind of roughed up a little bit this past weekend, but I think they'll be fine. So him and Justin LeBron, I mean, that's just, they knocked the cover off the ball. It's two exciting shortstops. One of them 6'5", 220, the other's 6'2", 180. And they both impact the game in different ways. So I love to see players like that go after it. And I'm excited for we're inching ever closer to conference play. You got these tournaments where you see some better teams match up. You got South Carolina, Clemson going at it, Miami, Florida going at it. So some rivalries there. So it should be an exciting weekend.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think conference play is where you're really going to find out where you have depth issues here and there, and I think the real teams are going to show out on top in conference play when it comes down to late April, early May. I do have one gripe, and I'm going to just briefly touch on this. When I go in and look at conference ELO and conference power ratings, and I just see the independent is number one. And it's college baseball. There's no independent teams, but now that the Pac-12 doesn't want to pay anybody anything, there is one, and it's Oregon State. And I mean, I'm not griping Oregon State. It's a fantastic program. I mean, they're going to be there at the end of it. but it has the Independents ranked as the number one conference in baseball, and there's literally one team. So I just hate it. I mean, I'm a Sun Belt homer. I love the Sun Belt. I think they're better than the Big Ten. I'll save that argument for another day. I mean, the Big Ten has like 3 teams that are relevant.
They're lucky Oregon moved over.
Yeah, they're lucky Oregon and UCLA came over to help them out a little bit. But I digress. I just can't stand it. I think that they need to fix that. I think they need to just, I'm not going to say wipe Oregon State off the map, but maybe just take them off the conference ELO ratings, because I like to see the Sun Belt in the top 4 ahead of Big Ten, because I'm not going to go any further into it. That's all I got. And I appreciate you guys listening to this week's podcast. I mean, it's been great. Might have went a little longer than maybe we hoped, but we love talking ball, and I mean, there's nothing better that we want to do. That's why we started this at the end of the day. I mean, we love baseball, we love college baseball, and we love to share our thoughts and opinions with you guys. And I appreciate you guys listening in, and I hope you guys leave a comment, maybe anything that you guys want us to talk about next week and the weeks in the future. And we appreciate you guys.